this is Damon Richardson from Ganesha Games, and today I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction on how movement, activation, and combat works in Star Eagles. So I've set up a little scenario here where we have a Concorde bomber, a Constar Arrow, and a Saseki Manta fighter. So when it's your turn to activate a ship, you will nominate one of the ships that has not activated on your force, and in this case I'm going to choose to activate the Concorde. Now when you choose to activate, you're going to decide how many actions you would like to get with that fighter. So you can choose to do none, 1, 2, or 3 actions. It's up to you how many you want to roll. So the question you might ask is, why would I just not roll all 3 dice and try to get 3 actions every single time? Well, the reason for that is that if you ever fail 2 of your activation rolls, the initiative will turn to your opponent, or your opponent can draw a combat card which will give him a unique advantage during the battle. So there's a disadvantage of risking a lot of actions unnecessarily and then failing and having those go to your opponent. So how do you get a successful action? Well, each ship and each pilot will have a quality rating, which will range from 2, like ace pilots, to rookie pilots, which are 4. The lower the quality, the better the pilot. And the reason why the lower the better is because the lower the score is what you have to beat on a roll of D6. So for example, if my quality is 3, which is an average for most of your average experienced pilots or your veteran pilots, you would have to roll a 3 or higher. So in this case, I'm going to try to activate the Concorde bomber and try to attack the Saseki heavy fighter. Now, one thing to consider when maneuvering is that there's a particular vulnerable spot that every fighter has, and that's directly in its tail. And we've created this little template to show you what that tailing area is. So if I'm actually able to maneuver my ship within touching this arc in any way, and then fire into the back of the Manta, I will get a bonus in combat. So obviously when I activate, I'm going to try to do that. Now, one thing I'd like to point out as I'm going through this video is that all the components that you see that we're using are actually prototypes. So this is not like the actual production quality material that's going to be coming in the game. These are home 3D printed models that I've printed out on my home printer, and I've painted them to look as good as I can get them to look. And then of course all the templates and everything are just homemade printed out templates to demonstrate the gameplay. Of course the components that are going to come with the game are much higher quality, but this should generally give you a sense of the scale of the ships because they're actually all actual scale and a good sense of what the stuff is going to look like in the game. Okay, so now I want to have my Constar Concorde bomber try to attack this Saseki heavy fighter. So I'm going to decide that I'm going to push my luck and I want to roll and try to get 3 activations. So I roll my dice, and this is an average pilot. So an average pilot has a quality of 3. So that means every dice roll that I get that is 3 or higher is considered success. So great, I got 2 successes here, which is a 3 and a 6. Now the 2 is a failure. So nothing happens, I do not get an action for the 2. Now if I had gotten 2 failures, so say this 3 would have been a 2 or a 1, I would have still got my 1 action and I would still complete my turn, but after I completed my turn, the initiative would then pass to my opponent, who would then be able to start activating his ships and do what he likes. Alright, but in this case I happen to get 2 actions, so I maintain the initiative, and I can use those 2 actions however I want. So when I activate a ship, the first thing I want to do is look at its speed. So a Concorde has a speed of 2. So a speed of 2 means it will get 2 movement sticks. 1 movement stick, 2 movement sticks. So that's its base movement. Now it must use every movement stick that it has. I cannot choose to use 1 or I cannot choose to use 0. I have to use 2. Now I could use my actions to add or reduce this, but at the end of the day, however many movement sticks I have to move that. So how do I use the movement stick? Well, it's pretty simple. I just put the movement stick in front of the ship like that, and then I put the other movement stick touching, so it's in the middle like this, and the little arrow at the end of the stick tells you whatever angle I can turn at the end of that turn. So you could see I could choose to do that, I could choose to go straight like that, or maybe I could choose to turn over here like that, or any combination of the above. But in this case, I'm trying to get into the tailing arc, so I'm probably going to go a little bit straight like that. Now, what happens is that your ship will then move from its current position to the end of the stick. And of course, I can then make the turn again based off the angle at the end of the stick. So I could choose to turn this way, be straight, or turn that way. Well, of course, since I'm attacking this ship, I'm going to turn the maximum I can turn and face this direction. So that's the end of my movement. All right? So I'm going to go back before I attack the ship and show some other options I could have done instead of, what I did. This assumes the basic 2 movement. But let's say I didn't want to go 2, I only wanted to go 1. Well, I could spend one of the actions I have to remove one of the movement sticks and slow down and brake a little bit. Then I would only have 1 stick, but I'd also only have 1 other action to use. All right? I could choose to speed up, so I could still keep the 2 sticks that I got. I could spend one of the actions, and I could add another stick and go 3 by speeding up. Or I could do what's called an advanced maneuver. Now, advanced maneuvers are separated from normal moves by color. So advanced maneuver templates will always have a yellow or orange color to designate them as special moves versus a basic move. And the difference is basic move is free. So the little blue templates, you'll always get to move. So even if you had no actions, no activations, no nothing, a fighter will always move its base movement free. But the yellow advanced maneuvers are things I can spend actions to do. And they include the reverse turn, which is a very powerful maneuver, which allows you to rotate your ship at the end of the turn. Or I could do the side slip or the tight turn. So let's explore how these work. So the tight turn, to use a tight turn, I must spend an action, and I have to replace 2 regular sticks to get 1 tight turn. Okay? So since I have 2 sticks, I can replace them and get the 1 tight turn. Well, what the tight turn allows me to do is make up to a 45-degree turn at the beginning and a 45-degree turn at the end. So it lets you turn very steeply. So say I wanted to turn to the right, if I turn 45 degrees here, I can move and then I can turn 45 degrees at the end, so I make a 90-degree turn. Or I could do the 45-degree turn the other way, which we consider to be a side slip because basically the ship just shifted over to the left. All right? So that is how the tight turn works. Now, if I had more movement sticks, I could, of course, just connect them at the end and continue my maneuver from there. So that's the tight turn. The last I'm going to tell you about is the reverse turn. Now, the reverse turn, again, is a special maneuver. So like all special maneuvers, it takes one of my actions to use, and I replace 2 sticks with 1. So basically, whenever you have a yellow stick, it's going to replace 2 blue sticks to use it. All right, so the tight turn, the special trick that I have here, is that when I move to the end of this stick, I can turn my ship to face any direction I want. So it's very powerful. But in order to do this maneuver correctly, I have to make a quality test at the end. And the quality test is made at -1. So for example, this pilot had a quality of 3. So if I wanted to turn successfully, I would have to get a 4 or higher to pull off the maneuver successfully. So in this case, let's say I wanted to get really tricky and I wanted to turn like this at the end of my reverse turn. I check and see if I succeed, and I rolled a 3. That means I failed. That means I do not end up where I want to. Whenever you fail a reverse turn, your opponent can choose what direction your ship comes after the turn. So he could choose to make me go this way or turn me around this way or whatever direction he wants. So although it's very powerful, and if you succeed, you can change direction very rapidly, if you fail, it can put you in a very disadvantageous position. So it's something that inexperienced pilots should not use, and there's always a risk associated with a reverse turn because the pilot could do something incorrectly. All right, so that's how the advanced maneuvers work. So now I'm going to go back into the original maneuver I did, which is I'm not going to do anything tricky. I still have my 2 actions, and I'm just going to make my basic move because I don't need to do anything tricky just because I'm already in a fairly good position to start out with. I'm just going to move here. And the great thing about this is that since my base is now touching the tailing zone, I am in the tailing arc of this ship. So now I want to shoot. Now all weapons will have a range, either long, medium, or short. And all weapons can shoot whatever the range stick is, they can shoot 2 times that. So for example, if I had a long range, I could shoot up to 2 long sticks. If I had a medium range, I could shoot up to 2 medium sticks. Or if I had a short range, I could shoot up to 2 short sticks. So in this case, this is armed with lasers. It's also armed with a heavy railgun. But we're just going to use the lasers for fun. So the lasers have a long range. So clearly my ship is within range. So in order to attack, what happens is that your opponent will roll a dice, and you will roll a dice, and you will add the combat value of your pilot. So in this case, let's say the Saseki is an average pilot. He will have a combat value of 2. I am an average pilot. I will also have a combat value of 2, so we're equal. So it's basically just a roll-off. So the Saseki would roll, and he got a 1, and the Constar player would roll, and he got a 1 also. So this is a draw. So when you roll the same, the draw always goes to the defender, which means that the attack failed. All right, so let's say we had a different outcome. The Saseki rolled a 5, and the Constar player rolled a 6. So in this case, the Constar player actually beat the Saseki, because 6 plus 2 is 8, and 5 plus 2 is 7. So whenever you beat the opponent, you hit him, and you will potentially do damage to the ship. It's how we check for damage is every weapon has a power, and then the defender will have an armor rating or shields. Shields only work against energy weapons, whereas armor works against everything. So shields basically lower the strength of any energy weapon that hits it, making it less likely to penetrate the armor. All right, some ships have projectile weapons. Projectile weapons ignore shields. So for example, this Concorde actually had a railgun. So what might have been a better move for me is instead of firing the laser, knowing that the Saseki had shields, I probably wanted to fire the railgun because the railgun will ignore the shields and I only have to deal with the armor. So that's essentially how combat and maneuvering works. So let's see what happened in this case with the hit of the laser, which I got. All right, so the laser actually has a power of 8 versus the Saseki, which has medium shields. So the medium shields reduce 2 from the power of the laser, meaning that the laser's power is only 6. And then the Saseki has an armor value of 3. So as how this works is I now must beat the power of the weapon by rolling a d6 and adding my armor value. So the armor value of 3, which would get added to my d6 roll, I rolled a 5 plus 3 is 8, which is higher than the strength 6 of the laser, meaning that the laser was unable to do enough damage to hurt the Saseki. So the Saseki gets away from that shot, taking no damage. Say, for example, I rolled a 1 or a 2, in which case I would have rolled less damage than the laser. That means the laser would have done damage to my ship and I would have taken a point of damage. Now the Saseki ship happened to have 3 points of damage, so it would only have taken 1 point of damage. Now, some weapons have do more damage on a hit, and also it's also possible to do more than 1 damage by rolling double of your opponent. So every time you double or triple the roll, you will do multiple points of damage, which lets you kill ships very quickly if you happen to get very good rolls. All right, so that concludes our little basic introduction of Star Eagles and how a ship is activated, moves, and attacks. I mean, it was very basic, very quick, and shows the very basics of the game. But hopefully that gives you a flavor of how the game works. At some point, we'll do a little bit longer introduction that explains how the initiative goes back and forth, how ships react, how you can do scanning, how you can do secret moves. There's a whole bunch of nuances and optional rules that you can add or subtract from the game to make it as deep or as easy as you want it to be and suit your particular style of play. So thank you for watching, thank you for your interest in Star Eagles, and I hope this was helpful.